work in what a lot of people consider a transactional business. Do the deal, get a check. That's the perception of a ton of realtors. And what I always said is, look, like, this is a pretty easy business. Like, you should really care about your people, and you should smile all the time, and you should work insanely hard for them. And there's truckloads of opportunity for that.
Welcome to a private conversation with me, Steve Robbins. I'm sitting down with some of the biggest names in Indianapolis real estate. I've enjoyed these conversations immensely, and I hope you will too. A big thank you to Executive GM Ian Soroyan and his whole team for hosting us at Cunningham Restaurant Group's Commission Row and Mel's Speakeasy, located in downtown Indianapolis within the Pacer Sports and Entertainment Complex. Check out the show notes to learn more. And now, my conversation with the owner and CEO of Lockstep Realty, Alex Montagano.
Like, the way that I worked was like,
There was no one on your team up to that point.
no, we started growing the team in 2019. My wife and I got married in 2020. So if you like go way back and start the whole thing over, I got in the business in 2012, was on a team with Century 21, and I started in April of 2012. I went fully broke, out of money, September, October of that year. I had to borrow money from a friend. And this is
You're saying 2012?
2012.
Okay.
So 2012, I was brand new. I was 25 at the time. And we called a friend, one of my best friends. He was living at home. He was a teacher. And it was kind of like, Chris, I need some money. How much money do you have? He's like, I got plenty of money, man. I'm living with my parents. How much money do you need? Like $1,000. And I was like, that won't even get me started. I said, I need $5,000. I don't need the questions. I know I'm an idiot. I know I've screwed up. I need your money. I need $5,000. And he was like, cool. Yeah, you got to come get it from me.
That's a good friend.
Good. He's my best friend. So I got in the car, drove up north to Valpo. In the bank, hi, I'd like to withdraw $5,000. He immediately hands me the $5,000 right in front of him, and they're like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
So that was kind of that kind of like bought me enough time, and it was kind of an eye opener. I don't believe in credit card debt. So like, this is going to work or it's not. And when I say broke, it was like I had no clients, no pendings, no listings. And the bills that I had to pay had 1 month left before I was down to zero. So Chris gave me $5,000. I stopped trying to be the mayor of Broad Ripple, and supporting Kilroy's and brothers, and kind of scaled that back and went to the idea of like, you need to do 2 open houses every single Sunday. You need to call every for sale by owner that you can find in Marion County, and then into Hamilton County, and then you need to call the expired listings. And so like when I was starting my business, it was centered around the idea of like, man, this is the hardest of work.
Yes.
And so I didn't do social media. That came in as like a fast trend. Was 2017, 2018 is when that started getting popular. So for me, it was like, look, I'll just out hustle you by doing this like gritty work. And I was at Century 21 for 18 months. I was on Glenn Bill's team.
Okay.
And I learned a lot about like one of the best things Glenn ever did for me was he took a contract, threw it to me and goes, read this until you know it, and know it upside down, inside out. And you should be able to recite it without even looking at it. When you're 25 years old, brand new, you can sit across the table from somebody who's bought and sold a lot of real estate. And if you can plow through that contract with confidence and an understanding of what it says, you are the expert. Like,
yeah,
you're the expert as it is, but it takes a lot of question out of the dynamic, and it makes the trust factor really easy. I stayed there till 2013 and had some really big business opportunities I sold, I think in 2013, I sold 29 houses, like $7 million. And one of the things, the reason I know that is because like all that really matters in addition to like when you're running a business is the numbers. Like either you make money or you don't. And you can, I think a lot of people in our industry operate from the notion of like, I'm busy. Do you make any money?
Right.
Are you transacting? Are you shaking hands with people that can sign a contract or put you in a position to be able to do so? And so I get go back almost every year. It's like this, some of my team members give me a hard time and they say I'm like Rain Man, but the reality is the numbers are the most important thing. So it was $6.9 million. And I'm looking at this going, man, I want to be on the team for a while.
In 2013.
2013.
Real quick, let me ask.
Yeah.
So how much real estate had you done up to the point where you had to borrow the $5,000?
That year in 2012, I did like 3 or 4 transactions.
I mean, in how long?
I started April 2012. And so 6 months in, I was calling, asking for money.
What gave you the confidence that you weren't going to just blow through the $5,000?
There were no other outs, to be honest. I mean, so at the time, I graduated in 2009 from Butler. 2009, I had a job out of college. It was a great job. It was a corporate job. And I did that for 9 months and realized there was there just was a disconnect. I wasn't passionate about it, didn't love it.
Did I see an exact target?
So it was, I worked for a railroad company selling privately owned railroad material. So anything that assembles the rail track, I sold. And you're probably wondering, like, how the heck do you get into that? My dad was the chief engineer for railroad companies for 37 years. And the company that ultimately hired me was the sales company that my dad was a buyer for. My dad was a huge buyer. And my dad, 37 years in the industry, he was nationally known, insanely respected. I asked the president of the company for a job. It was 2009 when I graduated, and she came back and said, "Hey, Alex, we don't have any jobs for you." Looking back at 2009, yeah, I know you don't have any jobs. Nobody had any jobs.
Exactly.
I sent her a handwritten note that just said, "Hey, thanks so much for your time and consideration. I appreciate all you do for my parents." Alex, this is unbelievable. You said you need $200 for an internship. Yeah, come on out. We'll house you at an extended stay hotel. We'll give you a car, fly to Salt Lake City, Utah. You need to be here in a week. Cool. Went out there, worked in that world. 9 months in, some personal stuff happened with my dad's involvement in the industry. And I kind of looked at it and said, well, if my dad's not going to do this, I'm not going to do this. So I quit. That was March of 2010. So I was a Butler alum, March of 2010. I was living at my parents in Valpo, and I came down to Butler every Wednesday with 2 racks of tall boys, walked into my buddies doing the 5th year lap and, the victory lap of college. And it was like, hey, let's watch the tournament together. Well, if you remember, Butler won, and they won, and they won.
Oh, I remember.
So I was sleeping on what we called the Big Green Puff and hanging out, and we're going to Brothers, and we're going to Kilroy's, and we're partying and having a great time. Butler kept winning. I didn't have a job. And so we did that run, and when that ended, Butler finished. My parents were like, hey, cool, hope you had fun. You need to get a job.
Right.
And I played baseball at Butler, so I was a college athlete. My best friend Chris at the time was trying out for the Geary Railcats.
Okay.
He had finished school, stud baseball pitcher. I'm like, hey, I'll come try out with you. I don't have a job. Like, let's just ride this thing out. And the day I got told, hey, you're not good enough, you don't advance to the next tryout, I had a sales opportunity with the Pacers open up. So driving home after getting cut, hey, Alex, this is so-and-so with the Pacers, the season ticket job that you applied for. We're going to hire you. I'm like, oh, man, that's pretty cool. So I drive down to Indianapolis, move into 23rd in Delaware with some buddies, some college guys I knew. I was staying in a 10-by-10 bedroom on an air mattress with a plastic tote for my clothes. I mean, I look back and it's like, oh man, hey, we're moving along, like things are okay. But I did the job at the Pacers, and that's where I learned a lot of stuff about sales.
Yeah.
It was very much like one of the first days on the job, they make you watch the movie Boiler Room during work.
Are you serious?
So we're this work environment.
Glengarry Glen Ross as well.
Oh man, all of them, right? Now it'd be Wolf Wall Street.
Yeah.
And like when you made a sale, you rang a bell and you sent an email to the whole marketing staff about the sale you made, no matter how big it was. And they had sales rankings, and I mean, it was cutthroat. It's the sports industry.
Yeah.
And, you're supposed to make 100 phone calls a day. And being an athlete, for me, it was like 100 calls. Like, let's just do 100 calls. But I started noticing I'm making 100 phone calls. I'm not getting anywhere. And so it's not about the calls. What is it about? And a good friend of mine recommended the book, Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. And so I read the book, and the whole book talks about like the value of a relationship and fostering relationships and growing the friendships you have. And he does this thing with like big dinner parties and bringing everybody together and all this stuff and being a connector. And so I'm sitting in the office. This guy's selling suites and sponsorships, crushing it. I meet another guy in the sponsorship division. He's crushing it. And I'm like, they're like, Alex, if we get anybody that calls about tickets, we'll just send them to you. Oh, that's cool. So then 100 calls became like 60 calls because I'm going to lunch and I'm hanging out and I'm sitting in their cubicles and talking to them. And the staff is like, Alex is never on the phone. Alex, you don't make your 100 calls. And I'm like, I'm a sales leader for the people that you recently hired. So I went from like last to first rather quickly just by, hey, call my friend. He's going to buy $10,000 worth of tickets. Keep the commission. Just keep hustling. Okay, cool. And so I learned a lot of like what the hustle was. And the hustle was less about how many phone calls can you make. There was one day I made like 287 phone calls in one day to prove a point. Transacted none. Had no phone call. I had no connections. But I said, hey, I did 287 phone calls. It's not the phone calls. It's the connections. And so it's like this game of hustle and relationship. And what's cool now is I have 5 or 6 clients and friends that were sales reps with me during that window of time.
Okay.
So that, but NBA lockout happens, 2011. I go to our staff and I'm like, hey, you're asking us to get deposits on tickets. Yep. Keep getting deposits. Keep getting season ticket deposits. How are you going to pay us? I had a salary of $25,000, living downtown Indy. But like, nobody's asking that question but you. If you're smart enough to answer that question, you should move it along.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh man, bummer. I loved it here. I had a whole season, which was awesome. It was wild. The environment at every home game, moving and shaking, like the draft parties.
It was probably fun.
Oh, it was awesome.
But paying you almost nothing for the fun.
It was you love your environment that you work in. I mean, you're wearing cheap banker suits because that's all you could afford at the time. And it was funny, when I worked there, my mom called me one day and was like, I don't know who you think you are. Stop going to Nordstrom's. You don't have any money. And I was, buying ties, buying cheap suits that, if I showed you some of these suits, it was like, man, somebody should have smacked me. But it was fun. Like
you couldn't afford more.
It was crazy. It's what everybody was doing, but we were just living, you're sitting, you're talking to a client who's 5 rows off the floor trying to get him to buy season tickets, and you're watching an NBA game and it's a Tuesday at 8:00. You gotta be wired up a certain way to love that. And I have friends that still do that world with kids, and it's like the whole family's just all in on what that is. So NBA lockout, I have 7 interviews with Exact Target to get my job.
7? Wow.
They didn't want to hire me because I didn't have any tech experience and I didn't know tech. And they're like, you don't know tech. And I'm like, I could sell anything. I walked into Exact Target on my first day and was like, wrong guy, wrong seat, not for me. And I tried
there for a little while.
4 months.
Okay.
That was it. So I knew right away. I remember my parents would call, how's work? Yeah, it's good. So 3 jobs in 3 years at this point.
What did you not like about it, by the way?
I was an inside salesperson. I couldn't at the time I was like 24. I was insanely immature personally. Like
a lot of 24-year-old boys are.
Yeah, having too much fun in the personal world, too immature for the job and the opportunity. And at the time, the person in the job, on average, an average inside sales rep made $181,000. I'm like, I'm better than average. I'll make a couple $100,000. I'm 24. I had a $35,000 a year salary. Get in there, and I'm like, I can't learn this. And they're like, learn this, study this, talk to these people, and if you stick around long enough, you'll pick up on it. I look at the white pages, which is what they used to, the informational stuff, and I'm like, can't learn this, don't care to learn this, don't like this. What's another thing I can do? How do I figure this out? And ultimately, it was like the end of the first, so I started in November, it was like March, and I had pretty much made a decision that I was going to leave. And I had called Glenn and just said, hey, look, remember when you said anywhere, anytime, any place you would hire me? He's like, yeah. I'm like,
well, how'd you already know him?
Sold him season tickets.
Okay.
And when you worked for the Pacers, they didn't pay you until the ticket package was paid in full. And he put a deposit down. He gets the season tickets. And I wanted to be paid in full. So I called him every day and said, are you going to pay for your tickets? Are you going to pay for your tickets? Finally, he's like, call Kelly. Kelly is his assistant, team member. Hey, Kelly, Glenn said, run the card, pay him full. He pays him full. And so I go to the game. He's at the game. I meet him. He's like, hey, I got a question for you. How much money did you make on the ticket package? I'm like, $200, man. Like, hell yeah. And he's like,
and you were that persistent for $200.
It was what you did. It was what you did.
How are you being persistent without being a dick?
You were a dick. Honestly, like, this is terrible, but you would call people and say, if you open an interest-free credit card, pay for your package in full, I'll give you an extra set of tickets to another game. And in 2010, the Pacers were not selling out. It was the year they drafted Paul George. They needed people in the seats, so giving away a free set of tickets they gave you some liberties to do that. And so it's like, and with Glenn, like, I needed the $200. And he was like, man, if you followed up like this in real estate, you'd make a fortune. I'm like, yeah. How cool is the game?
Right.
So I called him when I was at Exact Target. I was out of options. I had, my first job out of college, my parents' relationship helped me get. When I got the Pacers job, that was kind of like hey, I hustled my way in here. But then to get that Exact Target job, I called on a lot of favors from my friends at the Pacers who had connections over there. And so I was like, man, I'm out of options. This is it. And when I started at Century 21, I was living on the canal. I'd wake up every morning, pop Sports Center on, go for a run on the canal, and honestly, I'd screw off all day. And I'd make my way up to the Century 21 office on 91st Street, and I'd get up there maybe at 11, maybe at 1. And look, I remember, there's days I'd walk in and go, forgot my computer, going home for the day, and I wouldn't do the work. And so when that, I'll never forget it. You pull up my computer and I'm like, there's $3,000, my living expense with rent, utilities, personal life, bills, $3,000. I have no clients. And it was like, you're out of options, pal. Like, and I wasn't going to call my parents because they would have said, get a real job.
Right. They knew you were doing real estate, though.
They knew, but they also were kind of like, hey, Alex, like,
still not a real job.
The fun needs to end.
Right.
So when I took that money, it wasn't like, hey, just buy me some time. It was like, I was living on the canal. I moved out into a 1-bedroom duplex at 53rd in College. And when I moved into it, my buddy came down. We loaded a U-Haul together. We show up and we walk in and he looks at me and he goes, what is the matter with you? He goes, I'm not staying here. And I was like, it's 53rd and College, man. It's a cool area. He's like, Alex, this place sucks. There was a hole in the ceiling. The kitchen appliances were subpar. There was also a gas leak from the range. It was so old.
Nice.
But we didn't know that. He was like, it smells like gas. I'm like, this is where I'm staying, pal. He moved all this stuff in. And this was earlier. This was like August. Like, knew I was in trouble, figuring out a plan, hadn't asked for money yet, trying to fix the problem on my own. And he was like, I'm leaving. So he left. I stayed. And for the first couple weeks, I would like go home and be like, man, I have a headache. Hey, buddy at 61st in College or 61st in Kingsley who just bought a house, can I stay on your couch? He's like, yeah. So I got this place. I'm staying on a friend's couch. And finally, I go home one day and I'm like, there has to be a gas leak here. So I call Citizens. They come out. They identify that it's at the range. They're like, you got to get rid of this. So they help me get rid of it. I'm like, cool. Get a new range, figuring it out. And there was a day I came home from work in Italian family, right? Like the week before. My parents knew I was struggling, but they didn't. I'm not telling them. Tough guy, I'll figure it out.
Exactly.
My dad shows up and he's like, Alex, I made a bunch of like lunches for you. I've got all this meat you can freeze, whatever. And I come home from work one day and the fridge died. And it looked like not only did the fridge die, but somebody was killed in my kitchen. There was blood from all the meat. And it was like, all right.
Was this the absolute lowest point?
It sure felt like it. It was like, I remember just being like, what are we doing? Like, how do you, like,
were your friends' words resonating at this whole time?
I knew. Like, I knew, like, hey, the fun's over. You got to figure this out. And I had friends being like, hey, come to Broderpool with us. We'll pay for your drinks. I'm like, this isn't about that. Like, this isn't, that's not the problem. The problem is, like, this consistent behavior. And look, I love to have fun, but I wasn't working.
Right.
Like, I was screwing around. Fell into a couple deals, enough to, like, keep the train going. And so when I took that money, it was like, all right, I will pay you back. He's like, you don't ever have to pay me back, man. He's like, but you got to get it together. And it was like, yeah. Well, all of a sudden, like, opportunity from open houses and expired listings. And in the front half of 2014.
But you started working. That was the big difference.
Expired calls, open houses, FSBOs. I coached a youth baseball team. Opportunity was coming from that, from, like, parents. And all of a sudden, like, the first half of 2014, so I took the money in October. The first half of 2014, I sold $4.5 million.
Nice.
Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
We had 4 deals over $500,000, which, if you go back to 2012, there weren't that many deals over $500,000. 2013.
Where were they coming from all of a sudden?
One was a dad whose son I was coaching.
Okay.
Another was an expired listing. And then another was, I think it was a for sale by owner. I'm pretty sure. But it was like, these all just came all at once. And then, look, success breeds opportunity. My friends started seeing, oh man, he isn't screwing around anymore. And then a friend would move and I'd get that deal. A friend would move. Then you get another for sale by owner. And it's kind of the compounding nature of the behavior.
Yeah.
So 2014, at the end of 2013, I'd kind of taken things as far as I could, being on a team, paying commission splits, things like that. It's like, hey, I want to figure this out on my own. Went to Remax.
What was the main reason you changed?
It was just, I didn't want to be on a team anymore. I thought, hey, I could do this. I paid a lot of money into the team.
Right.
But I was 26 and I didn't understand what I was getting for what I was paying for. And so I thought, I'll just figure it out on my own. And the reason I didn't stay at Century 21, I made a decision over the idea of, like, marketing and branding. Century 21 was a gold post and a black sign and a sign rider. Like, that was how you marketed yourself.
Yep.
Remax let you put your face on next to the balloon, but the balloon had to be bigger and it had to say Remax, but it could say Alex Montagano on a real estate sign. And you could have a brand. Remax was kind of the cat's meow. I had a connection there. Judy Cohen was the managing broker.
Right.
A buddy of mine.
Remax Legends.
Remax Legends, yep. So Judy was the aunt of a friend of mine, and he kept being like, talk to Judy. And I talked to Judy, and we went to lunch, and honestly, it was like sitting across the table from my mom. She made me feel insanely comfortable and actually said, Alex, you should come here and build something because you're going to have kids one day and a family and you want to have those things. If you're trying to build it then, it's going to be insanely challenging. So start it now. I'm like, oh, that's kind of smart. And so we did that. And I was at Remax for, I think it's 4.5 years is what it shook out to be. Had insane amount of success, but it was all just doing work. I mean, I just worked round the clock. I mean, I'd write offers at 11 o'clock at night. I'd be up at 7 in the morning and just got into the wheel of like just business. 2017, I sold tons of business, $17 million, burn out, get to like January of 18.
And right now you don't have anybody on a team.
I had an admin. Okay. I hired my admin in 2016.
Okay.
And it was great. Here, do all this stuff for me. I couldn't get my lead-based paint disclosures filled out correctly, so at Remax they wouldn't pay you. And they'd be like, hey, can you get this filled out? And that was like the catalyst to hiring. Somebody was like, I suck at paperwork, do this. So at that point, it was 2017. I think I sold $17 or $18 million. And I had a friend call me, my lender buddy, called me January of the following year and was like, hey, you don't answer your phone when I call you. You don't answer the Zillow leads that I'm paying for. Are you working? I'm like, I don't care. Leave me alone. Like, I was like cooked. And I'd done 50 or 60 deals, however, 60 some that year, 70 something.
Well, who's paying for the Zillow leads?
My lender and I are split.
Okay,
yeah. He's like, dude, we're buddies. You good? And I'm like, I'm burnt out. I'm tired. I just made $400 and some thousand in commissions. I'm 30 years old at the time. I need a break.
Right.
And so on and on it went. I'm at Remax in 2018, and Drew Schrader came to me about EXP at the time. And I looked at it and thought, look, this model, if it works and all this stuff is real, I have no risk to do this. I don't have a family. I got a girlfriend. I have a rental property that I live in. What's the risk here?
Right.
There isn't. Like, I could just go to another brokerage if this is all a bunch of pie in the sky.
Go for it.
So, yeah, it's exactly what we did. So I moved summer of 2018. I had some really good friends at Remax. It was a tough move to make that jump and move over and do it. And so I joined 2018, and it was great. Like, everything was good. I had an investor that I was doing a lot of business with, and I think it was 2018, 2019, his wife got her license to tackle his business together, give me a little more bandwidth. And so we're selling. 2018, we did like $19 million, back on track. She's helping with the investor business. And I get the first person to be like, hey, can I join your team? And I'm like,
now, are you Lockstep at this time?
No.
Okay.
No, so I'm Montagano Real Estate Group. As of 2016, that was my real estate brand. It was look, in our industry, name your team after yourself. That's what everybody does. So Montagano Real Estate Group, on we go. 2019, somebody's like, can I join your team? Like, yeah, whatever. I got tons of leads. I got Zillow leads. I got personal business I need help with. Guy comes aboard, helpful, doing a nice job. And then another person joins the team, and another person joins the team. And around this time, I have an overabundance of business. I'm starting to get bigger deals. I'm starting to get more opportunity. My now wife and I are planning a wedding. All this stuff's going on. And I'll never forget this. I'm at St. Vincent de Paul serving groceries from 8 to 1 o'clock one day. And in the 5 hours I was there were 5 people on my team. All those 5 people called me for help. And all you're doing is building a bigger monster. You're creating a bigger problem for yourself. Like, you need like staff to facilitate this dialogue and these conversations. And while this is going on, I'm traveling a ton, and I go on a trip, and it's 2020 at this point.
Before or after COVID?
This was after COVID. Rewind a little bit. So it's early 2020. Trying to make sure I got my years right. Yeah, no. So this is COVID year. I meet Daniel Leeper. I have a client buy one of his properties. Him and I become fast friends. He comes to EXP. He's doing his business. We're buddies. And during the COVID time, I mean, my business is like out of control, which it was like dead and it was turned off. And then all of a sudden it went crazy. They drove rates into the floor. People started moving. They deemed us essential business. And I was like, man, I don't have enough bandwidth here. So I get through 2020, 2021, and the beginning of the year is gangbusters. But there were 2 things that happened in 2020 that made me realize I need to start like delegating some of this money I'm making to like buy my time back. One was Lake Tahoe, June of 2020. I'm standing there. I'm having dinner with my wife. It's one of my favorite places in the world. I'm looking at the beach, the water, nature, and the mountains.
It's an amazing Venn diagram of everything cool.
And I got an agent on the phone ripping me about a $300 issue from an inspection with the closing the following day. And I'm like, my guy, it's like 11 o'clock in Indy. It's 9 o'clock here. I'll give you however much money you'd like to just close the deal and move on. I don't care. My client, I'm not going to do this to them. And I'm on vacation. Maureen, my wife, is like, Alex, how are you going to fix this? I was like, I'm going to fix this. This is never going to happen again. Okay. We get married October of 2020. We take our pseudo honeymoon in December because that's when you could travel. COVID raged at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And we have this great honeymoon in Florida because that's where you could go. And I'm negotiating a deal. And I am getting ready to take off on my flight that I don't have Wi-Fi on. And I'm like, sign the deal to my client. I have this deal we're negotiating. Alex, I have some questions.
And you're out of pocket for 2.5 hours or what?
And I land, and the house had sold to somebody else. We were the only offer when I took off, and it was gone when I landed. And I went from like total peace on our honeymoon to landing in a fit of rage. And
did it ruin the honeymoon?
She was like, Alex, you just find him another house. And I'm like, this is never going to happen again. And she's like, I love you, but you say that a lot.
I've heard this before.
So about 2 months later, I called Daniel. Daniel's wife was pregnant. They were getting ready to have their first boy. During this time, he's calling me, going through similar stuff. And I'm like, hey, what if we join forces? I'll hire you. You come work for me. We'll build the stream together. He's like, I have my own dream. Not doing it.
Right.
And I'm like, go talk to your wife and then call me. And if it's a hard no, I'm cool with that. My wife's interested. We're both interested. I think we can really help each other. So I hired him April of 21. And that was kind of when like the idea of like the team started to grow. It was like the staff help that I needed. He was my first like, whoa, this is a life changer. This is a big deal. And the way that we were going to do it is him and I were just going to figure it out together in terms of how we were going to operate. I was going to be the owner-operator, the visionary. He was going to be the boots and the hustle. And him and I were just going to attack this thing together and figure out where it went. And while all this stuff happened, we got to schedule a real honeymoon at this time. So remember, I mean, this is what people are doing. They're having half weddings and then schedule another wedding. And we went to Hawaii, and I had a realtor team member at the time get upset that when he listed a property, Montagano Real Estate and Alex's face went in the yard. Alex, I want my own sign. Start your own team. this is how it works.
That's why you went to Remax Legends.
This is how it works for everybody. And he's like, this doesn't work for me. I'm like, cool. You could join your own thing. I'm fine with that. But then I started thinking, and look, chaos creates opportunity. I'm looking at this going, I'm going to deal with this my whole life unless I fix this. So I sit down with two agents. Daniel, Austin Lipking was an agent on our team. He was relatively new at the time, but he was very smart when it came to like the idea of brand awareness. And I said, hey, what do you guys think if we just change the brand? They're like, to like Montagano Group or to Montagano this? And I'm like, what if we just made me go away? And they're like, no, can't. And I'm like, what if we hired a brand person that really dove into this? I think I'm onto something. They're like, cool, if you would do that, that's amazing. So we bring in a brand consultant, a freelance guy comes in, and he starts asking questions, taking notes, And this went on, this was summer of 21. In February 4th, 2022, we introduced Lockstep Realty to the world. And it was the way to take an agent, it was becoming an agent-centric world where agents want to be the focal point. It lets me run the team. I'll be the brand, the support. But like, let's make this about you guys as agents. Let's lift you guys up. Let's let you guys all have brands. At the time, I had 10 years of experience. I'm like, let's just ride that stuff together. And our agents responded really well to it. Our agents' names and phone numbers go on the signs. They get their own marketing type stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they can create their own brand within a brand, and it allows us to run an agent-centric team, if you will, that isn't about Alex Montagano. And I don't want the phone call on your listing. I want you to get the phone call on the listing, and I want you to convert the opportunity. So that was 2022. That's when we launched that.
That's really similar to, I'd say, about 5-6 years ago, we went through a very similar transformation.
Yeah.
Where we went from where we weren't agent-centric as much because we were providing leads, and it was more about the company, and we decided what we need to do is help our agents build their own brand, and we'll be the brand. This is what we've been saying now for years. We'll be the brand behind your brand.
Yeah.
It's like, how'd you come up with Lockstep? How many different options were there?
So there were 10, and 8 of them were horrible, and 2 of them, it was Lockstep and Saltbox. And Saltbox is a northeastern United States style of house.
Yeah.
And it was like, we're not in Northeast.
Right.
And Saltbox Realty is likely going to get a phone call and a lawsuit from somebody in Boston or Massachusetts down the road. I'm like, that's a cool name, but it's not this. And the 3 of us, Austin, Daniel, and I, were sitting in the room, and it was like, it's definitely this because of the message that you get to create with it.
I love the name.
Look, if you look at who we are and what we do and how we work for our clients, it is all encompassing of those things. So it wasn't like, look, our clients we go from stranger to friend to client to advocate for life. And it's one of those things where it's like, look, we work in what a lot of people consider a transactional business. Do the deal, get a check. That's the perception of a ton of realtors. And what I always said is, look, like, this is a pretty easy business. Like, you should really care about your people, and you should smile all the time, and you should work insanely hard for them. And there's truckloads of opportunity for that because people are over-leveraged or stressed. They need the commission because realtors are not the wisest financial people when it comes to paying themselves and saving money and paying their tax bills and things like that. And it's like, man, if you could build something around that and help your team understand that those are the core values that you need to work from, we're not performing heart surgery here.
Right.
So yeah, when he came up with the name, it was kind of like, that's definitely the best option for sure.
Well, you chose a good one.
Yeah.
And so that was in 22.
That was 22.
And so now How many folks do you have on the team?
So we have 18 total people on our team. There's 14 agents. We've got a couple people working as hybrid agent staff. We have, I mean, our team dynamic is awesome. We have, so I run the team. Daniel's he's kind of our director of sales, if you will. His job is he has his own business. He supports my business and my clients with me. Him and I work together on a lot of stuff. But then he is a trainer and educator and support to push and grow our agents. Then we have a director of operations. That's Kristen Nelson. So Kristen is more like, I refer to her as the queen of culture. Team lunches, team activities. Hey, this vendor wants to come in or bring lunch. Like, make the agents in the room collaborate more, work together, become friends, because this isn't all about work.
Right.
If you enjoy where you work, it's not really work. You can encourage and push each other to succeed, things like that. So Kristen drives our culture. Thano Genos runs our marketing division, so he's like kind of the creative marketing behind it. Sarah Berry balances our social media. So Thano does the marketing, Sarah does the social media. And then my mom is like a team runner.
Okay.
She's literally the team mom. So she'll make lunch, she'll drop lock boxes, she'll do paperwork, she event plans. So our client appreciation event that had 400 to 500 people at it, my mom put all that together, lined up vendors, things like that.
So they moved from Valpo to Indy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we moved my parents here in 2020. My dad was pretty sick at the time. All his medical care was down here, and we brought them down here in 2020 during COVID.
Okay.
So during COVID, during a wedding, yeah, there's a big story there, but yeah.
I want to get back to your parents in Valparaiso, but kind of finishing with where we're going with your team.
Yeah.
What, I mean, you've built something pretty special pretty fast, but what's the goal from here at this point?
Yeah, so I look at like the industry as a whole, and look, I think there's a world where when I started, it was like everyone for themselves. It was, if you worked at Century 21, you didn't go to Remax because it was Femax. And everybody had a nickname for everybody. Talk to Tucker was old and archaic. Carpenter was this. High Garden takes all this. Everybody had this conversation about somebody else. And all of a sudden, like, we've evolved into this need to collaborate across a ton of markets. Like, I have tons of friends at High Garden, at Tucker, at Keller Williams, like, you name it, Compass, whatever it is, because the relationships in the industry are how you get access to off-market listings, how you get your deals accepted, how you get information about opportunities. And so it, like, evolved into that. And as we built Lockstep, like, we went from 5 one year to 8 the next to 18, like, very quickly. But what I believe is that if you fill the room with the right people, the size of your organization really doesn't matter. If your agents are still presented with the same opportunities to grow and evolve and get better and collaborate and build a business that they want, you should be able to provide the hub for that. As long as you can provide a headquarters that's big enough for everybody to get in, there really isn't a size that you want to do. So I don't look at statistics. I don't look at, like we set goals every year of how many deals we want to do. But the reality is, like, I want to have, like, I love our team of 18 people, but there's about 18 other people that I would like to come work for us.
Yeah.
That I know would breathe fire and energy and bring juice to our room. And so for me, there isn't really like a dynamic of what we'd like to do. People have heard me say, oh, I'd love to have 25 producing agents on our team. That to me is like, you could have 100 agents in the room. If the 100 agents play in the sandbox together, build each other up, aren't competing over the same level of business, but instead sharing opportunity and education together, that's what this is all about. How do you take everybody in the ever-changing real estate world and help everybody build their own style of business to accomplish the goals they want to accomplish? And what your goals in business and what my goals in business are likely very different, but we can both have that and we can lift each other up and support those things. That's where I want to take this. So, you know, if it's 25, if it's 50, but one of the things I love, it's kind of a selfish thing, but I love more than ever when my own clients call and they're like, I see a Lockstep sign around the corner from my house. I'm like, yeah, that's brand power. That's awareness. You know, I love the idea that we're becoming a recognizable brand across the market. Like, I truly believe this. We'll sell 250 to 300 houses this year as a team. We're closer to 500 than we are to 200, like going backwards.
Yes.
We'll sell 1,000 houses in a couple of years, and it just inevitably will, because the staff and the team of people that we have is so powerful and so, look, they're awesome. They support our agents. Our agents love our staff, likely way more than they love me. And that's what it's all about. You guys build this thing together. I can be a visionary and a support and a backbone for this, and we can just build this together. And you just keep adding great people into a room. There's no telling how big it could ever get.
Commission Row offers an unforgettable dining experience with high-quality steaks, a raw bar, and exquisite seafood curated by an expert culinary team. The menu, designed to delight every palate, features seasonal ingredients paired with an extensive wine and spirit selection. Open weekdays from 4 p.m. and for brunch at 10 a.m. on weekends. Continue the evening at Mel's Speakeasy below. After dining, enjoy an after-dinner drink with a wide selection of wines, cocktails, and spirits. Open daily from 5 p.m., Mel's is perfect for relaxing and unwinding. Commission Row and Mel's Speakeasy. An unforgettable dining experience awaits.
How would you describe yourself as a leader?
Tireless. It's a superpower I think I have is like, I'm the fastest guy off the mat. And I stay in the ring longer than anybody. And I'm passionate about what I do. I care a ton about everybody. And I expect an insanely high standard of those in the room. And that's not for me. That's because we're all capable of putting more into our businesses. My story makes me relatable to the person that says, Alex, I'm not like you. Look, I slept on a couch with a gas leak and a hole in the ceiling and was so broke I couldn't pay my bills. I am sure your situation sucks. It's not the same, but I've been in a terrible position too. Like, let's work together, because you don't have to stay there. Just because you're there doesn't mean you have to stay there. And look, this business gives you fork in the road decisions all the time when it centers around like, what type of business do you want to create, or what things do you want to do? I think if you just show up every day and you look up 5 years from now, you'll have something you never dreamed you could have. And that is what I did. I was a walk-on at Butler, earned a scholarship, but I showed up every day. I was a catcher. I caught all the bullpens. It sucked. I didn't enjoy it, but the pitchers were my friends. I stunk. I had to get better. So I caught bullpens. And then the coach was like, Alex, you catch every bullpen. Why don't you go catch the ninth inning? 5 pass balls. I mean, I wasn't any good, but
5 pass balls?
I was not very good.
I like your humility.
Yeah, but it was...
Say that.
But then it was like, oh, I played. What do I need? When opportunity presented itself, I worked really hard to be prepared for those things. And so, like, from a leadership perspective, like, just because of where you are doesn't mean you have to stay there. You could dream bigger. I mean, look, like, there's not a team in Indianapolis that sells 1,000 houses. Just not. We're going to. And you have to be crazy enough to believe that to accomplish those things. But it only gets there with the right people in the room. And I could go get a roster of the best agents, and that's not the most valuable way to do it. It's the group of people that want to work together. It's like building a super team.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they got to learn how to play together. They got to learn how to do this together. It's why some of the small market, look at the Pacers. Built, not bought. Like, that's how you have to do this. And, you know, from a leadership perspective, it's like, if you just pour into the people and you keep showing up and you keep doing it and you deliver on what you say, like, I think as a group, we do that. If we say, we're going to do this for you, we're going to do that for you, it may not happen right away, but our commitment is to constantly make it easier for you to succeed and be more successful based on the grounds of what's important to you as an agent.
How has being an athlete shaped your being a business leader?
Oh man, it's just makes you tough. You know, I mean, being a business leader is, I was on the phone yesterday with a friend of mine, and he said, I understand why sometimes you experience the fatigue or the mental side of this, but you make decisions every single day that are high stress, high strain, that require a ton of sensitivity, and it's literally what you do all day long. Yeah. And then my most important job is to go home and be a dad to twins and be a husband to my wife. This is hard, but I mean, come on. Like, we're selling real estate, we're working with friends, we know peers in the industry. Like, pick what your heart is. I mean, for real, like, there's people that have it a lot worse. In 2013, 2012, I was so broke I couldn't pay a bill. Like, this isn't that hard relative to speak to that. So yeah, I think, you know, being able to look, when I was a walk-on, I could have never done anything, kept the GPA up for the team and had a lot of fun, but I like to compete. Being an athlete teaches you how to do that at the highest of levels. Every year somebody's coming in to take your job. That's, as a realtor, if you're not following up with your clients, doing things for your clients, there's an agent trying to take your client away from you every single day. So are you going to talk to them, or am I going to go talk to them and have them become my client? And it was the Pacers. And, you know, I was raised to be a competitor, to be tough. I mean, you know, there's no crying in baseball.
We're back here in the Pacers complex.
Oh, man.
It's all full circle.
Yeah, it didn't look like this when I worked here.
No. Mel Simon would be proud of you.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So, I'm ultra competitive myself.
Yeah.
But how is the competition in real estate? I guess my question for you is, when you're trying to compete for the business and when you're trying to do best by your client, how are you also managing the relationships you have with your peers in the industry?
Well, look, like, it doesn't matter. And this is like, you control the things that you can control. So if I walk into a listing appointment and you walk into a listing appointment, I have no control over what you do, what you say, what you charge on a commission or a fee, what you say the house is worth, and candidly, what you say about me. Like, it doesn't matter. You could go in and drag me through the mud and charge 1%. I don't really care.
I wouldn't do any of that.
I know you would, but
I'm just saying
that. Look, sometimes that exists in our business or in other parts of competitive sales business. For me, I'm unapologetically authentic. I don't believe fostering relationships with clients, friends in our industry is a one-size-fits-all. There's not a box to pick out of to go, here's how this guy gets it, here's how that girl gets it. But what I believe is every relationship needs something. And it's my job when I sit down with that client to get an understanding of what is important to you. And a common question that I ask my sellers is, what kind of seller are you? Are you somebody that wants to accomplish this, or are you somebody that accomplishes that? Are you emotionally attached? Are you not? And there are people that will walk into that room and say, this is how you sell your house for the highest dollar. That plan doesn't work for everybody. And so for me, it's more educational. It's more, look, this emotional thing. I don't need to be emotional, but I need to understand what emotions you have so I can help you accomplish what your goal is. It may not be to sell it for the highest amount of money. It may be be the easiest transaction. It may be to sell to a family. It may be to do this. Let us help you get there. And then that understanding helps me keep the main thing for that client. And so when it's like, Alex, cool, emotional support and all that, that's great. But it's getting that information that helps you lead that client down the path that they've told you is the most important thing to them. So when you're selling a property and you're frustrated and you're fighting over an inspection, if there's a life over here that selling the house helps you get to, I'm going to remind you, Washington, D.C. is 2 weeks away. Isn't that the most important thing here? Or are we focused on $1,000 worth of inspection items and being pissed off about that? Yeah, you're right. Here's the path through this.
And so when you're negotiating on a transaction, how are you doing right by your client, but also maintaining positive relationships with your...
Insane amounts of communication. And look, I said this, like, this is emotional. I'm Italian. I'm an Italian fiery male, like passionate as all
You're the
hell.
stereotype.
Oh man, I've scaled down a little bit, but yeah, like I'm insanely passionate about what we're trying to do. But this isn't I win, you lose. The buyer wins, the seller loses, the seller wins. This isn't that.
Right.
This is, you want to accomplish something, I want to accomplish something. We want to do this together. This isn't you versus me. This is all of us together. Everybody in the boat row the boat to shore. And so insane amounts of communication, education and information is insanely critical during this. So like, if you're telling me something's wrong and I'm saying that it's not, and one contractor says this and one contractor says that, it takes, you can scream at the other agent all you want, but are we getting closer to the goal, or are we just tooting our ego here? And look, before, early on in my career, I wanted to win all the time. And look, that's not being competitive. That's being an idiot. That's being egotistical.
Yeah.
There's a massive difference. The victory for the seller is you helping them accomplish what they told you their set out goal was. And so that's what makes, to me, like a great realtor is helping keep those main things the main thing, performing at the standard that you said you would do, and helping that seller or buyer accomplish the goal that they asked you to set out to help them to do. And look, everybody's going to run their business differently. I'm not going to be the agent for everybody. I've won listings that are competitive. I've lost them. It's part of the business. If you're not losing deals or losing opportunity, you're not getting in the arena. And you got to get in. You got to put yourself in the opportunity to lose a listing opportunity. You got to lose. And the more you lose, the closer you are to winning. And you need to take the losses and learn from the losses to grow your business to be better each time you go meet with somebody. So,
what advice would you have for a new agent?
Find people that you trust, that you can learn from. Show up every single day. Not when you feel good, not when the sun's out and it's 68 degrees, every day. And look, I tell this story, this is not one of my proudest moments, but when it comes to how I showed up for my business every single day, Easter Sunday, I was in Valpo, my mom had made dinner. I was going home like 2 or 3 times a year. So not seeing my parents a ton. Easter Sunday, eating dinner, sitting down, so you eat Easter dinner at like 2 or 3 o'clock. A Catholic client calls, I want to see this house on Kingsley. When?
How'd you know the client was Catholic?
Just friends.
Okay.
Yeah. Happy Easter.
Right.
We want to look at it now.
Oh, geez.
I'll be there in 3 hours. Dad, pack me up a to-go. Love you guys. I got to go. And I look back on that, and that sucks. I don't like that I did those things. But I had 3 goals when I got into this.
What year was that? Or how long ago are we talking?
2017, 2016, something like that.
Okay.
And I had 3 goals. Goal number 1, build a recession-proof business. I was educated a ton when I got it in 2012 about what life was like in 2008, 2009, 2010. Had gotten a lot easier when I got in 2012. So recession-proof business, translation, say yes to every opportunity you can all the time. You're building something not for today, but for years from now when something bad happens. You should never feel like, I wish I would have done more. I wanted to build a business that allowed me to be a present husband when the time came to get married. And then I wanted to build a life and a business that allowed me to be a dad that would go to the sporting events, go to the ballet, present at home during the evenings, things like that. That's what my parents did for me. That's how my dad was with my mom. So it's really important for me to be able to have those things. So saying yes and showing up and look, some of that's insanely hard and uncomfortable. And Alex, you work all the time. I had friends in the very beginning that were like, can you put your phone away? And I was like, no, I can't. One year I said no to a baseball trip with all the guys I graduated with because I had out-of-town buyer coming in. I had 2 clients looking at houses. Bailed the Friday we were all meeting. I just got a phone call. I got to stay. I hate that stuff.
So that wouldn't happen today, and you wouldn't leave the Easter dinner today, or would you still?
No, I would not today. But I would encourage the opportunity to someone on our team.
Sure.
Is anybody open to do this? We have people that would say, yeah, and jump at it. Or I would say, it's Easter dinner. This is important to my family to be together. Is there an opportunity to do this tomorrow? And
you didn't feel like you could have said that back then?
Maybe. But I also worked with a lot of people. I worked with whoever I could.
Right.
But I thought, I can stay in the ring and take enough punches here that in 30 days it's over. And you just move it along and move it along and move it along and move it along. Nowadays, I would probably say something like, hey, look, I'm with my family.
Right.
I'll show you tomorrow. Well, Alex, I need to see it now. My team is with their families. Call somebody else.
Right.
And back then, I didn't do any of that because
you had to build it.
You had to build. And you had to keep building and keep building. And look, you get the question of like, when is enough with what you're trying to build? And I don't know. I get to make that call.
You told me what your numbers are.
Yeah.
You're going to do 1,000 transactions.
At some point. And that doesn't mean you got to take bad deals and you got to work with bad clients. Like our team does an excellent job of, hey, look, like if that person called, I wouldn't work with them again. Or I told the client that I'm not a good fit and we're not a good fit based on our values and how they treated me. That's okay. And being insanely clear about like your standards and the type of people you want to work with, that's some of the most important stuff you could figure out as a business person.
So you talked a lot about your parents. What was growing up in Valpo like?
So I grew up in Granger.
Okay.
My dad had a job in Elkhart, Indiana. That was great. Awesome upbringing. I have a brother. He's 18 months older than me, Chris. And we moved to Valpo in 1999, 2000. My dad had a job transfer. You know, life was good. We had a great life. My parents spoiled us, you know, all that good stuff. We had everything, never wanted for anything. When I was in high school, maybe a junior in high school, sophomore in high school, I needed some baseball equipment. Hey, Dad, I need a new bat. Baseball bats are like a mortgage payment. It was $400. My dad's like, cool, I'll go get you one. He comes home with a job application to a sports shop in town. And he was like,
great lesson.
Get a job. And I was like, yeah, no. And he's like, I'm serious. And I was like, okay. So I go apply for the job. I get the job.
You get a discount on bats.
You get a discount on everything.
Right.
But the best part of the story of all this, I get a job, and 16, 17, something like that. 3 weeks later, I walk into the office, and I'm walking in the shop. This guy stops me in the parking lot. You're going to walk in there. You're going to freak out. You're not on the schedule. I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, you should call the boss. I'm like, okay. Have no idea what's happening. How old were you? Maybe 17, something like that. So I walk in, and they're like, we took you off the schedule. And I was like, yeah, I'm here to work. Like, well, you don't work here anymore. And I'm like, yeah, that isn't going to work. I can't go home and tell my parents I just got fired from a job. And I was like, the manager on staff's like, Alex, I don't know what to tell you. And I'm like, can someone put Mike on the phone? Mike's the owner of the company. Mike's like, Alex, you don't work hard. Like, you just screw around, you stand around. Why should we keep you here? And I'm like, because my dad's going to kill me. Like, this ain't going to, I can't go home. He's like, here's the deal. Stay and work today. Come see me tomorrow. Okay? So I go and I meet with him next day, and he's like, Alex, it's like this. If you played third base and there was somebody else that worked way harder than you, that was better than you, that tried harder than you, you wouldn't play third base anymore. And I was like, yeah, I know. And he's like, do you get it? And I was like, yeah, I get it. I need my job back. And he was like, all right, I'll give you one more chance. And that was like an eye-opener for me. Like, one, power of sales. Like, please don't fire me.
Yeah.
But also a lesson about how you need to work and how you need to show up every day.
So you took it to heart.
The only thing you could do. I had a lot of stuff to buy too, so I needed that discount.
Right.
But yeah, it was a great lesson. Coincidentally enough, they're a vendor partner that we work with, so they're based out of Valpo. They provide all our swag for us.
Cool.
So I kind of a blast from the past, but yeah, it was. Look, I remember walked in. I was like, I can't go home, and so.
What's your dad like?
So my dad, he passed away in July of 23. He was a tough Italian guy, but he cared an insane amount for everybody that he did everything for. And my dad held an incredibly high bar for everybody. He was relentless in the standard of that. But in the world that he worked in as a chief engineer, like, safety was his thing. And with rail product and rail cars, safety, if you don't have it, like, people died.
Right.
And my dad saw people die. And so he was very passionate. He didn't miss anything with anything. He was pretty relentless in his style of leadership. He was hard-nosed. He was tough. And he was hard on me and my brother growing up, but it's because like that's what it took, and that's what it takes.
I love the job application story.
It was, and my dad, he loved everything he did. He poured everything he could into his family. He poured everything he could into his work. But he was never a guy that was like out with the buddies. He was home or he was at work, and those were his things.
Okay.
He loved, like, us as a family. He would cook. He was around. He was at the base. We coached my brother's basketball teams. He coached my baseball teams. Traveled with me when I started traveling. Like, he was involved and he was around, but he was insanely passionate about his family. Yeah, he was awesome. Yeah.
It's great to hear, though, that you had mentioned that they still thought real estate was, you got to get a real job. He was able to see that you made it.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool. He used to call me when I started. And when I would be like showing houses in the evenings and I didn't have stuff in the afternoons, I'd go home and hang out. And look, like, you don't have to work 12-hour days. If you show houses from 4 to 7, you don't need to work from 8 to 7 p.m. Like, this isn't that job. My dad would call, what are you doing? "I'm about to take a nap, and then I got to show houses." Don't you have anything you could do? Like, and he was a corporate guy. Like, my dad worked 6 to 6. So that break and that stuff, he didn't really understand. And then as I got older and, like, more successful in the business, those conversations would be, I may have won an award. Oh, man, like, how many houses are you going to sell? Like, the questions changed. What's the biggest house you sold? Like, stuff like fun stuff like that.
That's a lot more fun than when are you going to get a real job?
Well, look, he wanted to make sure that, hey, you got to work. And when I started early on, like, I didn't get that. Like, I didn't work that way. I was 25. Like, most 25-year-old kids are. And, you know, as it grew and evolved, you know, the conversations got a lot more fun. It was like proud parent, spectator, biggest fan type stuff.
What about with your mom?
Well, my mom is where I get all my sales stuff from. My mom is a hustler. She's a worker. And she's like, my mom is also Italian, so she's like the crazy Italian mom. But she's about as like as loving of a person as you're going to meet. She balanced my dad really well with that. My mom would smack my ass with a wooden spoon and the next minute give you a hug and tell you, you know, she loves you. And so it's been interesting with my dad passing. It was like the next day, and I'm like, my mom had wanted to work for a long time. She's a worker. She's a workhorse too. I mean, we all are. My brother is. It's just kind of ingrained into our family. But it was like, we're planning my dad's ceremony, and I'm like, Mom, why don't you come work with me? Like, this would be fun. It would help our relationship. We would spend a lot of time together. We can give you a community to help you, like, move on past all this mourning. And I mean, it sucks to lose a parent and it sucks to lose a spouse, I can imagine. So she's funny, she's witty, and
she's helping you on your team now.
Yeah, she's a
How
worker.
cool is that?
Yeah, it's fun. It was funny. She was like, you lead just like your dad. And I was like, oh, come on. Like, I'm not that tough on people. And she's like, Alex, your attention to detail, the reasoning for how you feel about so much stuff and how passionate you are, like, you don't miss anything because there's opportunity in everything for everybody, and you make sure everybody is part of that. Like, your dad did that type of stuff. And one day I walked in the office and we didn't have coffee.
Tough love we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. So I walked in, there was no coffee, and I called her and I said, we don't have coffee. And she's like, well, we've got more people on the team, so more people are drinking coffee. And I said, whose job is it to make sure there's coffee in the office? And she said, mine. And I said, don't ever let it happen again. And there were people in the room and they're like, that's your mom. And I'm like, this is just how it is. And
how did she react to that?
Probably hung up the phone and said, F you. But
Probably.
We've got more coffee in the office now than we've ever had.
Right.
But that's just it. Like, the standard is the standard. And I love my mom. Nobody gets, like, this is what your job is. Like, do the job to the highest level that you can do it every day. Give 100% of what you have to every day. And if your tank's empty, give 100% of what's in your tank all the time. And the team has done an amazing job of, like, surrounding my mom. 2 days ago was their 42nd anniversary. It was the first one without my dad. And so to be able to, like, she walked in the office, there's flowers for her. I got to take her to lunch. The team's giving her a hug. Somebody sent flowers to her house. People are doing that. I mean, look, that's a shitty day for anybody, you know, like, first one without your spouse. And so to have 18 people in a room lift my mom and say, we'll help you get through this together, that's pretty cool.
That's as cool as it gets.
And that's something, like, my dad would be proud of that. He would love that, you know?
He died last year.
Yeah, last July.
My mom died in 2016 in an accident, so I know the feeling.
Yeah.
But it's different.
Yeah.
Because sounds like from what you said earlier, he had been sick. So you kind of knew it was coming.
Yeah, so my dad was sick with different stuff all the way back to when I was in high school. I feel like the amount of time was 20 years. And so we share stories of, like, my dad when he was good. And then, you know, at the end, my dad was like a cat with 9 lives, but there were way more than 9. And when there were many instances, I think we all thought, man, dad's going to pass, or something's going on. This isn't right. he never passed. And people were always like, man, your dad's the toughest SOB, man. Like, I don't know how this is a thing. And when we got all the way to the end of the road, when he passed, it was like on a Friday, he was like, I'm done. And he died on Sunday. And when he died, it was probably one of the biggest shocks. Like, I always knew.
Hard to wrap your mind around.
But I never thought that was it. And since then, it's interesting. Like, I was always able to have a seat where my life allowed me to be there. So it was like, when my dad was sick in high school, I lived at home. When I was in college, my senior year, my dad needed triple bypass heart surgery. It was my senior year of baseball. I made a decision to go home because it was a couple hours away. Baseball's whatever. Family is family. And so I was able to do that. And when I could be there, it was like, man, I had the seat. My mom and I tackled it together. My brother's work schedule and some of the commitments he had in his life professionally made it insanely challenging. He was a golf professional, and that it makes it insanely hard. So it's taxing for him to be able to do that. And he was around as much as he could, but a lot of it was like, man, I'm just here. I'm here. And then when they were in Indianapolis, it was like, I'm 20 minutes away. And, you know, I miss my dad every day. I know my mom does. I know my brother does. But it was like, man, my dad had fought long enough. I think we all kind of felt that way. And I also thought, too, like, my dad wants me to be a good son to my mom. He wants me to do that. He wants me to be a good dad to my kids. He wants me to be a good husband to Maureen, and he wants me to be a good brother to my brother, Chris. And he wants me to lead. He wants me to be a leader. Like, he loves that about me. And so, for me, it's like, my dad isn't here. I don't get to see him. I miss that stuff incredibly, but I just, look, I know at least a large majority of what I do every single day. He can look down and be super proud that, hey, he's doing what we taught him to do, you know, and he's doing it the best he can.
Well, they have a lot to be proud of, but what are you most proud of?
The people I get to surround myself with every day. I mean, that's the reality of it. Like, I work a pretty unconventional schedule relative to the real estate world, and I couldn't do that without all the people. And that's Daniel, it's Kristen, it's Thano, but then it's our agents too. I am in the office from 8:30 to about 2:30 every day, and then I'm unavailable from 3 to 4. I go to the gym, and then after that, like, when I'm home, nobody's ever beaten on my door during family time. I need you. And the reality is, I couldn't do that without insanely supportive people. So, like, when I step back and get to look at everything, like, I want for nothing. I have everything in my life, and that's because I have great people and relationships. So probably the most proud thing is, like, man, I love my family. I love all the people in my life, but my wife and I have this insanely fortunate life that we get to live. And we made a decision in 2013 to do this. And I said yes to that. And I sold this house and I bought this rental and this happened and that happened. That stuff is not anything without all the people that I get to call work, colleagues, whatever, friends. And those people allow me to essentially live the best version of my life. That's what it is. So
you have twins,
Michael and Willa. So,
and how old are they?
They just turned 2.
Okay.
So they're insane. They're at that phase where they're talking a ton.
Every day is a new surprise.
Oh man, I came home the other day and the word was jump. They're jumping around the house. And I'm like, I look at Maureen and I'm like, hey, where did this come from? And she's like, I don't know. So then the next day it's something else. The next day it's something else. But
how has that changed you?
Yeah. So when we had the kids, I took the longest period of time away from work I'd ever taken. So it was, my paternity leave was 3 weeks.
Was it hard or easy?
Oh man. It was it's hard. It's the hardest job I've ever had.
Well, I meant taking the 3 weeks.
Oh, that was,
Like disconnecting. If you did disconnect.
our team did a good job of like kind of forcing me out of it. Probably weeks 2 and 3 were a little easier just because it was like you're getting into a routine and it was like, hey, I want to check back in. I think the 4th week was scheduled for me to be home helping. Maureen was like, I need you to get out of the house and we need to figure out some sort of routine with support and help. But look, perspective. You do a deal. I mean, look, it's just a transaction of real estate. Like, you got a kid crying. That's a different deal. And look, I say this. I was the most fortunate to have a runway of 10 years before that happened. So I got to say yes, build, do everything with no risk, no cost, outside of like some backlash of, Alex, you're never around, you're never available. So I got to say yes and do whatever the heck I wanted. And when I met Maureen, her family, insanely successful. She has been around work her whole life. She's passionate about her profession. So it was like, hey, look, this is part of who I am, so you know what you're signing up for. And she's like, yeah, I love it. Totally. My family this, my family that. This is who I am too. And so, look, I believe one of the most important decisions in your life, probably the most important decision, is your spouse. I nailed that, a 12 out of 10. And
Congratulations.
yeah, she is like a perfect balance of, yeah, go do what you need to do. But then also sometimes she's like, hey, most important thing here is not in your phone or on that deal. But yeah, the kids have been its own challenge in the sense of like just a transition to what, hey, life used to be like this.
Right.
It's not like that anymore. And for the first year they were alive, I remember when they turned 1 at their first birthday, I had deals everywhere. We had deals as a team. I was involved in too many things. I was like, I'm like half in on everything, and that's not fair to my clients. It's not fair to our team. And at that point, it was like, we have to shift some of the delegation patterns here. Like, I need more help. I need more support, and I need to get out of some of these things that I'm doing so much of. And I was flipping houses, managing my own rentals, running the team, selling real estate, prospecting for business, and trying to be healthy and exercise, but then also be a dad. How do you do all of that well? You kind of did it. I was kind of like halfway in everything.
That balance is tough.
There is no such thing. We try and we work like hell for that. But it always tilts some way. There's no perfect equilibrium there. But, I had a stretch from September of last year to the end of January this year where I didn't show a single house. That's my team kicking ass and allowing me to do that. But, my wife's love language is quality time. Welcome to real estate in 2024.
What's yours?
I would need to take the test again. I actually don't remember. Probably words of affirmation lifts me up a little bit, but doing that for her is like, hey, be home for dinner. Let's spend an hour together when the kids go to bed. And so creating that routine of those things, making that 2:30, hey, Alex, you need to be in the car going to the gym at 2:30. I want to live as long as I can. Maureen's grandma's 99. Maureen's mom has perfect health. Maureen is healthy as can be. I'm Italian. I love to eat. So it's like you got to work kind of against some of those things. But, I want to live as long as I can. There's a lot of life to live and a lot of fun to have. So that stuff has helped create balance. And then, look, it's the perspective of everything. If we have an agent call about a deal, or if I have a team member frustrated about, hey, what if this deal falls apart? That's okay. Like, part of it. Part of the job. Here's what you can do. Did you try to do this? Like, control the controllables of what you can do. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. And so often we put the pressure of everything. I need this, I need this, I need this. And it's like having 2 kids at home and a wife, like, no, they need me to be here and home and present. This deal, look, it's a career, it's a job, it's what we do. And yeah, we're passionate about all of it, but it's not as important as your family. So you can't bring that into your home. And that's a hard thing, but you know, when
You figure
a
it out.
diaper needs changed and you're on the phone for work, sometimes your wife gives you the look to go change the diaper, and that's the most important job you can be doing. So,
Tell me about the day you realized it was going to be twins.
pretty honestly, it was, we did some fertility treatment. We went in there. We had
Wasn't a surprise.
it was a surprise, but they had said, hey, there's kind of an opportunity here for it. I didn't really, whatever. Like, let's make one stick. Let's move it along. And we went in there and, you know, hey, the doctor, how do twins sound? And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And Maureen kind of looks at me and maybe started crying, maybe not, but it was like, Alex, who immediately, and this is Maureen and I to a T, who do you know that has twins? Who do you call? Your friend who runs a nanny service to figure out what we need to do. I'll call my friend who has twins, and let's start putting a plan together. We're really insanely proactive about that stuff. And so it's like getting all the alignment of help and understanding as support. But I didn't read a book on how to parent. We didn't do that stuff. It was kind of like, hey, let's live our life together in terms of what we're going to do. And we'll figure out the twin stuff after that when they come. And look, you could read all the books, but
Right. So there's no manual.
there's no manual.
You can't. It
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey.
I didn't know what I was going to be doing this show at the time, but when I knew I was going to be doing it, I knew I was going to be calling you.
Yeah.
We were on that panel together with Northside MyBoard, and I was just so impressed with your articulate and insightful, and I'm just like, yeah, I have to get to know that guy better.
Well, I appreciate it. We this is a great thing to be able to do, and I think, look, it's not about, like, if this story resonates with one single person out there that's like, man, I don't like this about my business, or this is struggling in my business, like, that's what it's all about. And I think the more goodwill you put into the world and the more you help people and the more you give, there's an equilibrium in the world that just kind of balances things out. And for me, I've been insanely fortunate with the people in my life, the opportunity that's presented itself. The journey I get to be on is like, there is no destination. Like, you had asked, where are you going? Cool, 1,000 houses. I don't know. Like, but I just love the idea that I get to go to work every single day with the people that I get to wake up every day next to my wife. I get to spend every day with my kids, my family, all that stuff. Like, that's the best part. The results, that's just a byproduct, you know? So.
What are you listening to? Podcasts and music?
So the music thing's, a lot of Creed.
Okay.
I have some people that'll laugh about that. I kind of went through the Creed phase with, like, over probably the last calendar year. So a lot of that. But it changes. Like, I listen to a lot of stuff. It's this lame explanation, but I listen to what sounds good. So a lot of people are like, oh man, that sucks. I'm like, it sounds good. I like it. So my music stuff, I'm not it's not something I'm passionate about. It's like flip some Avicii on and listen to that, go into the
I like that too.
Yeah. Podcast stuff, like, I don't have anything going. I just did some YouTube educational books, YouTube Secrets, Passive Prospecting, to kind of help increase my personal brand, just understanding more about how to build that. I love to read, it would follow like business, self-help, business education, things like that. So Ryan Holiday's about to release a book. It's called Right Place, Right Time, I think is what it's called. And he's a Stoicism author. Mm-hmm. Those types of things, like those types of books, have somewhat helped scale down the emotional piece of my life and kind of flatline me to keep perspective and the most important things, and then working every day on the things you can control, and that's your habits, your attitudes, and your behaviors. So it's not oftentimes what happens to you, it's the response that you have to what you've experienced. And so focusing on like stoicism books, mind books, like Getting to Neutral by Trevor Moawad's a big book for me. It's about like operating with a neutral mentality and a neutral mindset from you're never too high, you're never too low, but you're somewhere in the middle. And look, I have ridden the roller coasters and I still do. But man, when I can sit more in the middle, my equilibrium in my life's a lot better. That's for sure.
My youngest son last year read Reflections, Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
Have you read that?
No, but that is, how old is your youngest son?
He just graduated from high school.
Wow. That's a powerful book to read.
Yeah. That takes some effort.
Yeah.
But he's basically the father of Stoicism. So,
yeah,
he loved it.
Look, it's, there's a lot of noise in the world. And one of the big Stoicism things that I see all the time is like, you don't have to have an opinion about that. 2024, hey, that works. That works a lot. Like, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of noise. But again, I look at it this way, like, you don't have there's the things that you can control with regards to a lot of what the noise is. I don't control interest rates. I don't control house prices. I control how somebody goes and executes a home sale. Play a part of that. So these are the byproducts. Yes, they exist. They're the facts in the arena. But all the other stuff that we tell ourselves about good or bad, the NAR settlement, well, that's the thing. It's not scary. It's not hard. It's a change. It's reality. That's what it is. And if you can just look at it from that perspective and say, what is the most efficient, best way to tackle this? This, and this. These emotional things are what oftentimes drives your life. And getting into, the idea of Stoicism was just like, man, you're this emotional, fiery guy. Scale that down, because when you're like that, you can't think clearly for the highest and best decisions that need to be made. It's more when you're in that equilibrium down the middle. So I love that stuff. I think controlling your energy and your mind is something that, like, it's how you feel every day. In a world where we're told how to feel or how to look, or comparisons in social media, and look at this guy with 19 abs and this beautiful girl, and it's like, oh man, I don't look like that. I feel like shit. Like, that sucks. But the reality is like, that's probably photoshopped, and that's probably not real, or that person may not be happy, or whatever. So it's like controlling those things in your life that are most important to you.
What's your take on social media?
I think there'll be a world. Look, we do these things where we introduce stuff, and then it like explodes, and then like, aren't bell bottoms cool again? So there was an era where they were awesome. Then they
I might be out of touch.
I don't know. I think some of them may be cool, but let's just use like that type of stuff. Let's use short shorts, for example. Like, my dad would have worn real short shorts. The NBA guys would have worn real short shorts. And then there was an era when long shorts were really cool.
Right.
And now short shorts are coming back again.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, if you look at social media, it's insanely powerful as a mechanism to build personal brands. It's terrible for a lot of like the time consumption of what it is. I'm the worst doom scroller in the world. But it is a trap. The comparison that it causes and a lot of stuff is horrible, especially I think for kids.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a lot of regulations for like the younger generation on that. Like, when does your kid get a phone or stuff like that? But look, I think you need to understand it for what it is. What is the power of what it can be? What can YouTube do for a business or a personal brand? What can social media, Instagram, Facebook, things like that? It's great to help people connect. I think if you can identify that being its purpose, to say, Instagram helps me do this. TikTok helped me do that. Facebook helps me connect with this. LinkedIn does this. Awesome. But I think a huge majority of people look at it and go, man, Steve's team sold 18 houses this weekend. Oh, I need to sell 18 houses this weekend. No, you don't. You just need to be the best version of yourself every single day.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
The thief of joy. Oh, man, it's the worst.
What about artificial intelligence, AI?
Yeah.
Paying attention?
Yeah, a little bit. So I don't tinker in our tech much, but I understand that, look, an AI is not going to replace the idea of a realtor, but realtor and business professionals that use AI will replace the ones that do not. So I look at it as like a value add. It's increased bandwidth. If you're a realtor that's sitting down and typing out your property descriptions or writing your own captions on your Instagram or writing blogs with a pen in your hand, I've done it. Sometimes I still like to do it. There are programs and there are ways to be more efficient. And look, as real estate professionals, it's our job to help as many people as we're asked to help. That's what the job is. So if you can't help as many people as you want to help or need your help or ask for your help because you're doing mundane tasks that aren't the highest and best use of your time, those opportunities are falling to the other people who are. And so, it is something that you should be implementing into your business in some capacity. And look, I know some folks who have the most advanced level with AI. It's insane what they do. And from the comparison is the thief of joy perspective, it makes me feel like, holy smokes, we have to get more knowledgeable and better and more advanced in this. But the reality is like, learn it, start using it, use it to make your life a little easier. And look, all the free time that you get from it, you don't need to go sell houses, but go do things you love. If it's that extra hour a day lets me go exercise or go walk my dog or go out with my friends or read or pursue a passion that I love, you should do that. That's what comes of all that extra that you get with it.
I don't think you really need to. There's people that are on the front edge of all this that are working really hard with stuff, and you can do that and maybe get ahead of the ball game in some instances, but it's happening so fast that by the time, within a year or two, honestly, within 5 years, the world's going to be unrecognizable. Well, within a year or two, it's going to be so easy. You're just going to be able to speak into your phone and say, I need you to plan a trip for me to Cabo. And it will do it for you, including buying the tickets, scheduling, or look at the hotel, scheduling your excursions, whatever. I mean, you just gave it one command. That's happening, and it's happening fast.
Look, you can, a team member of mine, I used to give him a hard time. He was like, I'm not using ChatGPT. I'm not doing it. AI. And then he'd be like, look at this AI written property description. This is adjectives to death. I'm surprised there's not emojis in here. And then it was like, he started looking at it through a different lens. Tried it for this, tried it for that. Okay, it's not that bad.
All you have to do is tell it to change the tone to more business, or feed it a bunch of things you've written yourself and say, write all this in my tone.
In the process of doing that right now, where I took a program and plugging in, hey, ask me this many questions about the type of business that I run, and then you get to go in, type your own answers, and then it understands your tone. And then, look, when it's like, I want to write my own captions, no, teach the AI version to write the own caption for you in your voice.
Yeah.
How do I do that? Do this. Okay, cool. Now it's easier. So we're in the process with a lot of stuff like that. But like you said, we live in this informational world where it's like, there's AI, there's YouTube, there's Instagram, there's brokerage change, there's NAR, there's interest rate. It's like, drop a family into the mix, drop personal interests into the mix. How the hell do you keep up with all this? And like you said, like, you don't need to be an expert of all things. You don't need to be fully ingrained into it. You should have some knowledge in terms of what's going on, and then pick your niche that's most important to you, and then build a lot of relationships with other people to help you. I don't know anything about the tech at Lockstep Realty. People are like, hey, do you know about this? Or who does this for you? Or Alex, can you help me with my website? Talk to this person. They're the expert. Alex, when you're depreciating rental properties, who helps you with that? My accountant, talk to them. What do you invest in? Here's my financial advisor. I just do what people tell me. And look, I have the best team of people around me that makes me look way smarter than I am. And there's times that people are probably like, does this guy do anything? Yeah, there's plenty of stuff that I do, but it's the people that, make you better and better and help you with all that other stuff.
Well, you've proven that, because just look at from the gas leak and the hole in the ceiling to where you've come these days.
In this shithole.
I can imagine it.
Oh my gosh.
But man,
Yeah.
great to sit down with you, and I appreciate you having a conversation with me today.
I am.
We're in the same building. Maybe we could talk more often.